I want to talk about. I hope you're doing well. It's a nice, relaxing May 12th. Got a lot going on. I've got a phone call in a little bit, so I got to make sure I wrap up in a timely manner. Let's go ahead and start out the show, though, as we always do, with some famous history from today, May 12th, 2026. But let's go back to 1932. The body of Charles Lindbergh's son, Charles Lindbergh Jr., is found in Hopewell, New Jersey, ending the massive search for the kidnapped infant and leading to the federal Lindbergh Law, which made kidnapping a federal crime. In 1949, the Soviet Union officially lifted the Berlin blockade. The 11th month long, it's going to be one of those mornings, everybody. The 11-month-long blockade failed to force the Western Allies out of Berlin as the massive airlift operation successfully sustained the city. In 2002, former President Jimmy Carter arrived in Cuba for a 5-day visit, becoming the first U.S. president to visit the island since the 1959 revolution. Got a lot of concerns about what's happening in Cuba, obviously, with essentially the power blockade. One day we got to get on down to Cuba. We should do a live Ignition News report from the island. I think that would be fun. Fun fact, we were actually supposed to go to Cuba, but this was right when the Havana syndrome started happening. And we had planned out a whole trip and everything. We were going to go down, and they were like, yeah, no, this mysterious illness is happening to people from the United States. So we never went. But I mean, you got hantavirus, you got COVID, you got reflecting pools. The world is chaotic enough. We can take the chance. Havana, no, as they say. Jesus. All right, what else? May 12th is the 132nd day of the year. On this day in 1921, the National Hospital Day was first observed to coincide with the birthday of Florence Nightingale. And on today, this is fun, the first documented case of a computer virus known as the Creeper system occurred in the early 1970s through May 12th and is frequently cited in cybersecurity history for the 2017 WannaCry ransomware attack, which infected hundreds of thousands of computers globally. It is National Limerick Day. It is International Nurses Day, and is National Nutty Fudge Day. I'll leave that one to you. What do you call a factory that makes okay products? A satisfactory. That's actually pretty good. That is pretty good. I used to be a baker, but I couldn't make enough dough. That's all the humor that we've got for today. Let's get into our main stories. Got some really interesting ones. I do want to start first with ICE. We haven't talked about ICE in a long time as a country. But there's a good example of how out of control this agency is. And it reminds me of the old saying, your papers, please. Let's talk about Leonardo Garcia Venegas. We've actually talked about him before, believe it or not. We've actually talked about Mr. Venegas before. He's 26 years old. He was born in the United States of America, and he works construction in Baldwin County, Alabama. He has a Real ID, which is the federal government's own gold standards for proof that you are in the country legally. And now ICE has arrested him 3 times. We talked about the second time before. The first 2 happened last year. Masked agents raided his construction sites with no warrant. They ran past the white and black workers and grabbed the brown ones. They refused to accept his government-issued ID as proof of citizenship, and he sued. The Institute for Justice filed a federal class action challenging 3 DHS policies, which are warrantless entry into private work sites, detention without suspicion, and the practice of holding someone even after they prove legal status. On May 2nd, while the lawsuit was already in court, they did it again. Man, this guy is going to get a nice check, I'm guessing. Officers followed him home from a convenience store, and they tried to open his locked car door without saying a single word. He held up his Alabama Star ID. He told them he was a citizen, and then they pulled him out of his car anyway. They tackled him to the ground and shackled both of his arms and legs. They brought in a drug-sniffing dog from a local police department. It's a very good example of the cooperation of these local police departments, and eventually they let him go. DHS put out a statement, and their spokesperson said their operations are highly targeted, that officers do their diligence, and that they know who they are targeting before they arrive. Now, if that's the case, then it would seem as though these officers were retaliating against Mr. Venegas for his lawsuit. I think that's probably something worth looking into. They targeted him 3 times. He had his real ID in his hand on his own street. My advice to Mr. Venegas is simple. Get the fuck out of Alabama. It's not going to get any better. You need to protect yourself, your family, and realize the serious situation that we're all in. His attorney, though, put it simply. Leo is an American citizen who just wants to work in peace. And the argument that the government is now making in federal court is that Leo may not even have the legal standing to sue them for what they've done. And that is something that you would only hear in 2026 America. I have to really stop and point out one more time, just for the record, that if you think that if we do not stop this, that this will not eventually happen to you, and you think falsely that somehow you are protected because you were born here or you're the right color skin, the reality is eventually it's coming for all of us. It just matters when it's your turn. Mr. Venegas has proved that, not just once or twice, but 3 times. Let's get on to the next story. I do want to quickly ask you, if you are not yet following the show on your favorite platform like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, that it's imperative that you do, as we're seeing massive censorship across all of these platforms. You know, I think if you're like a millennial or Gen X, you know what the free internet actually was like. This is not the free internet. And essentially, we don't really use the internet anymore. We use basically the same 5 platforms to get our information, and the oligarchs who control those platforms largely determine what it is that we see. Here at the Ignition News, we try our best to get out the information that we can to you, but it's important that you follow along when and where you can. Click that subscribe button, and if you're one of those people who comments on every show, I love you very much. Let's get on to the next story. The sitting president of the United States, by the way, last night, posted more than 55 times in 3 hours on Monday night. Who has time for this? I didn't even have time to get everything I needed to get done yesterday, okay? I don't know how this happens. Of course, these were not tweets about policy or important updates. These were about Barack Obama. Part of the meltdown last night included a conspiracy theory about a 2016 coup attempt, and reports calling for President Obama's arrest, claims that Obama made $120 million from the Affordable Care Act, accusations of committing the most heinous crimes in American history, and a fresh round of wiretapping Trump Tower content that was debunked years ago. Of course, he kept going. He posted an AI-generated image of Obama, Biden, and Nancy Pelosi swimming in a sewage-filled reflecting pool, and he called Obama the leader of the gang. Sprinkled throughout, according to New Republic's reporting this morning, were videos of black people causing mayhem posted alongside the treason accusation, and these are, of course, not subtle at all. Let's be clear about what the evidence actually shows. Intelligence briefings are not crimes, and a president requesting more information about foreign interference into an election is not just treason, by the way. The current president is doing the same thing right now. No charges have been filed against anyone in this instance. No charges are going to be filed against Obama because the presidential immunity that Trump now enjoys protects anything that he did as well. What there is, however, is a man with an enormous institutional power, spending 3 hours in the middle of the night posting racist content about his predecessor in the name of American governance. Of course, he woke up this morning and kept going. Oh, that's right, Kodak. There we go. He posted about a fictional federal victory note currency with his face on it, and he memed Hakeem Jeffries as low IQ. This is what it looks like when democracy in America erodes. When we allow the president of the United States of America to behave this way as though it's just any other normal day, it is hard to question the legitimacy of the institutions that we're supposed to be holding dear to our hearts. This is absurd, it's foolish, and it's outrageous, and we need to stop pretending otherwise. And our last story, something I'll be covering in more detail soon, is one of the most heinous stories that I think we've covered in terms of abuse of power, literal power, like the kind that you plug your phone into. Amazon has now joined Meta and other corporations in a growing phenomenon, and I am not joking here, this is absurd when I say it out loud, token maxing. Let me just give you a little bit of background here if you're not super familiar. Tokens are the basic unit of measurement that AI systems use to process text. It's basically like, do you remember when your cell phone plan used to come with minutes? Tokens are like the minutes of the AI cell phone plan. Every response runs through these tokens, and there's no such thing as free nights and weekends. Because companies are under enormous pressure to prove their AI investments are paying off, they have started tracking how many tokens their engineers burn through internal dashboards, leaderboards. And Amazon set a target requiring more than 80% of its developers to actively use AI tools every week. So the engineers started gaming that system. They ask AI questions that they already know answers to, or they prompt prototypes for features they have no intention of building. They run agents on tasks that they could absolutely complete faster by hand. One engineer at Meta described throwing an entire fake project prompt away after generating just to keep their numbers up. They did not want to be flagged by their boss as insufficiently AI native. This is a phrase now that people actively use. Insufficiently AI native. Meta built a leaderboard called Claudonomics. That's absurd. Claudonomics gave employees titles like Token Legend and Session Immortal. After the information reported on it, Meta took the leaderboard down. However, they apparently needed press coverage to figure out that building a waste machine is a bad idea. Or maybe the leaderboard did exactly what it was supposed to do, generating real world AI traces that feed back into training the next generation of Meta's AI coding models. Nobody said that part out loud, but a long-term Meta engineer suspects that was the whole point. We're at the point where junk is feeding junk in the AI punchline. One study, by the way, found that the heaviest token maxers were twice as productive as their peers, but they were burning tokens, get this, at 10 times the rate. You cannot call that productivity. When someone is certainly more productive, yes, but to be that much more productive at 10 times the use is insane. This is essentially an AI arms race, and the infrastructure bankrolling that race is really propping up the American economy right now. There are hundreds of billions of dollars of spending in data centers and, of course, taking water and power from communities that are actively saying no to this. So to know that on top of that, these tech companies are basically burning through AI tokens just to prove that they're using AI with no tangible benefit is absurd. And by the way, these are not the same kind of AI queries that you are doing to make a picture of your dog with a sombrero or to figure out how to make a recipe of what is in your fridge. These are massive projects in AI systems that are millions and sometimes billions of dollars worth of investment. And they're running these massive projects that burn through these tokens at incredible rates. And now we're finding out that a lot of those projects have no purpose, point, and that they're just doing it to be put on a leaderboard. When a number becomes a goal, the goal becomes the point. The idea of actual work, actual thinking, actual projects, well, doesn't matter as much as being on the leaderboard. So what happens, of course, is when these companies track their token usage to prove that their investment in AI is working, well, then Wall Street takes note, right? The engineers prompt fake projects before they go to lunch. And Jensen Huang, who sells 80% of the chips that process these tokens, says employees should negotiate high token budgets the same way they negotiate their salaries. Think about that for a second. The head of NVIDIA is saying, hey, if you're an engineer at one of these tech companies, you need to make sure that you get enough tokens. He's not wrong, of course. Tokens are essentially the currency of AI. He's just not telling us who prints that currency. Given all of the problems ahead of us, to know that these tech companies are so blatantly inflating their AI usage just to hit these metrics, to know that there is so much waste happening. And I think what I would close out with is quite simple, really. What is most baffling at this time to me is when we look around and we see how many people are struggling. And constantly we are told that there is not enough. There's not enough money, resources, that we can't invest in things like schools, education, that we can't hire people, right? We can't have good paying jobs. But there always seems to be more money to build another data center. There always seems to be more money to spend on tokens. There always seems to be more money to purchase farmland in rural America, to turn it into a massive multi-million square foot data center that pollutes the environment, raises noise levels, and sucks up water. Every time we're told that there's not enough, and every time we prove them wrong because they keep spending and spending and spending while we keep suffering. So you've got a citizen pulled out of his car for the third time illegally. You've got a president of the United States posting racist memes, and you have tech industry giants burning through AI tokens just to prove that they did. As I said, this is about power. Usually it's about power, but this is an example in all three instances of illegitimate power, whether that is ICE arresting someone 3 times without cause, a president abusing his power to make racist comments about his predecessor, or literally burning through power on fake AI projects. While all that happens, you and I hold our ID to the window. We say, please don't hurt us. This is the Ignition News. It is May 12th, 2026. Stay safe, stay connected, follow along for future updates.